We're gonna make basically the most basic possible game starting out with Netbeans. If you haven't seen the past tutorials, see them because I will be going pretty quick to set this up. I'm gonna start with a new project, a Java application, Java class library. I'm gonna call it basic game. Inside basic game, I'm going to make our main class. And inside there, I'm just going to make the default constructor. And again, I'm going to go by this relatively quickly. You can look over the code and look up from the Java API if you want to know exactly what things do. But for the most part, I think it's pretty straightforward on the main parts that we need to start a game in Java. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a JFrame f equals new frame. It's going to throw an error since we haven't made that class yet, but make your import for JFrame. I'm going to make a new class named frame that's going to extend JFrame. I'm going to make a constructor. Inside there, again, we're going to get an error here because we haven't made the board yet. Set title, so game title. Set default close operation. This is just so that the system calls exit whenever we click the close button on the top right. Set size, I'm just going to put it at 800 by 300. Sure. Set visible true. And this makes it centered when we run it. I'm going to save that. And now I'm going to create our board. Let's have a class named board. Inside our board, I'm just going to make an empty constructor for now. And why is this giving us an error? Oh, we need to extend the JPanel. Bring in that, add your imports. Now when you save it, this should go away. Good. So now we have a basic setup, right? We have our main that just instantiates a frame. Our frame extends our JFrame, and then we have, this is basically, you could think of default variables that you can just always set up, right? The main one being add a new board, right? The frame is basically the window, and the board is actually going to be the game mechanics, at least for now. So if we go ahead and run this, just select your main class as main. We're going to get centered 800 by 300 JPanel window JFrame with some game title on the top. And then when we hit this X button, this is what I was talking about, the close operation. You see how our application is running in the back here? If we hit close, it's going to stop and it's going to say build successful. So that's fine. Everything's working good. Now we can actually get going on creating a background and having the basics of how to build out images in a Java game, right? For now, I'm just going to make a private player. We haven't made that player class. Actually, you know what? Just so we don't get those errors, I'm just going to make a player class that's going to be completely empty. It's just going to be exactly like this. And we're just going to save it so it doesn't throw us errors. So we have a private player and a private image named _bg image for our background image. Add your imports for java.awt.image, and usually I would start out by creating a timer inside here, but if you haven't seen the tutorial on converting timers into threads, I would suggest watching that because this will be inside a thread. And to make a thread, we will just implement runnable. It's going to give you an error because we haven't overridden the run function, so just go ahead and do that. You're going to have this run function inside here, and this basically is the bread and butter of your board class, right? This run function is going to have the interval that is going to get set off every 5 milliseconds. That's going to update the game. So it's basically our game loop, right? Game loop. Inside here, again, it's just going to be a regular thread. So we're going to try and catch. I'm just going to ignore any exception just for shorter code right now. Inside the try statement, we're going to do a while true. And then inside here, this is the game loop. And then at the end of this, we're just going to call thread.sleep, which pauses the thread for 5 milliseconds. So now every time this thing gets run, this is going to be running a lot of times. Inside the constructor for our board, we're just going to instantiate our player, which does nothing right now, but that's fine. We're going to set focusable to true and set focus traversal keys enabled false. Now the main part, right? We want our background image to be displayed on the screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to create first an image icon. Then we're going to grab the image. We're going to pull that image icon into this background image. So we need to make an image icon I equals new image icon. And then here, how to access the resources of your project. I'm going to do get class dot get resource, and then I'm just going to name it bgstatic.png. Close that up. It's going to give us an error on the image icon. Just add your imports for the javax.swing, and there goes the error. After we grab that image icon, and by the way, I haven't made this yet, I'm just writing in a name, we'll make that in a second. We're going to attach that to our background image as an image. How we do that is we're going to select our background image and then dot equals, background image equals I dot get image, and that's going to attach it to here, right? So now that we have our image created, we will start the actual thread, or create a new thread actually. Thread t equals new thread, pass it this, and then t.start, I think it is. Yes. Alright, so now we got it going. Now we need to make this background static image, which is going to be, should be at least 800 by 300, since that's what we made our frame. I'm just going to make that really quick. Inside our project folder, which is this right here, I'm going to make a new folder. It's going to be called resources. Right, so I'm going to put that bgstatic inside that resources folder, and the name of that resources folder is, I'm just calling it resources. It has no correlation between the actual this get resource. All that is that once you create that folder and then put your background static image in there, we're going to right click the project, go to properties, and then inside sources we're going to hit add folder, and we're going to add that resources folder. And then you hit OK, and then it should show up here with a base package and our background static.png. Alright, so now if we run this, nothing should happen, just because we have everything created in the code, but we haven't actually drawn anything to the screen. And this is very important inside game development. One of the main things is that in order for things to move, and more specifically that why we have this run function, why we're calling this thread.sleep every 5 milliseconds to this thing to refresh, is basically we're gonna draw any of the graphics that are on our game every 5 milliseconds, right? So right now, all we did was create an image icon and attach that image icon to the actual background image, right? So now we just basically have to draw that image every 5 milliseconds, whether it be moving or not. I mean, we're gonna make it move later, but right now it's not gonna be moving. So we're gonna do that right now. Inside this while loop, I'm just gonna add a comment there for now, player move, and we're going to draw our background, which will handle all our drawing in our repaint method. This repaint is automatic from the J panel. It calls a method named paint component that we can say public void paint component, and it accepts a graphics G. Add your import for the graphics java.awt. Then inside here, which again is being called every 5 milliseconds, we're just going to call the superclass paint component, pass it the G graphic, and we're going to make a graphics 2D G2D equals, and we're going to typecast our graphics G into it like that, right? And then add your imports for the graphics 2D. Oh, sorry, we're typecasting it as a graphics 2D. There. And then we're going to g2d.drawImage, our background image, the X location, the Y location, and I'm not even sure what the null is, but right now we'll just leave it for null, right? And then G2D, well, we'll leave that commented. You know, this will be draw our player. So now what's going on is this will be getting called every 5 milliseconds, and it's going to basically, the main part of this is that we're just calling g2d.drawImage, and we're passing an actual image with an X and the Y location of where we actually want to draw the image, right? So now if we save this and run it, we're going to see our background image, that it's not moving and doing anything right now, but every 5 milliseconds this thing is getting drawn. So let's say if our player goes off the edge of the screen and we want the background to move with it, then we could move, you know, the background's X position depending on different things. But for right now, at least we got an image to appear in the window, right? We're getting somewhere. We're going to go back to our board and we're going to add our player now. We're instantiating the player class inside here, but nothing's happening. So inside here in the while function, where I commented this player.move, I'm just going to write p.move, and that's not defined right now, but we're going to go define it right now. Public class player, we're going to give for now an empty constructor, and we're going to define a public void move function that's being executed every 5 milliseconds. Our player needs an X and a Y location, so I'm just going to put private integer X and a private integer Y. To start out, I will give him a X as 0 and Y as 0. Oh, just in case, I'm just going to put him as 10 and 10. 10 and negative 10. We'll give him an image. And now in our board, inside our game loop, paint component class, when we have to draw our player, we're going to say g2d.drawImage. And then here, how we did it before is that we're grabbing the actual image, right? The image as in capital IMAGE class. So right now what we do is we need to get the image of the player, so we're just going to make a getter for it. Public image get image is just simply going to return our GFX image, right? So now over here in our g2d.drawImage, we're going to say player dot get image, and then we also need getters for our x and y. In fact, I'm just gonna make the getters and setters for these things. Refactor. If you go to refactor, I forgot which one it was. Encapsulate fields, I think it is. Yeah. So you just select all. Yeah, I'll fix it if anything breaks. So there we just have our get x, get y, get graphics. That's good. So now back on our board, we're going to say p.getImage, and then for the player's x position, we already have a player.getX and a player.getY. And then again, null, just because null. If we save this and we run it, we have our extremely large character that's taking up half the screen, floating in midair, right? But again, this guy's getting repainted every 5 milliseconds. He's kind of, we have about 120. Let's just give him a y of negative. Let's see if that works. Okay, he's going up. Positive 120. 110 actually, because of the negative. Just to make it seem like he's standing on something. Alright, so now we got him back on the ground and he's getting drawn every 5 milliseconds. The last thing that I'm going to show in this tutorial is how to attach key functionality, right? We want our player to be able to, we want to be able to control our player from our keyboard. So we're going to go to the board.java, and what we need to do is that we need to implement an interface named key listener. So we're going to implement our runnable interface, comma, key listener, and then it's going to give us error because first we don't have it imported. So add your import for java.awt.events, and then you're going to have to implement those methods. Once you implement those methods, it's going to be key typed, key pressed, and key released. So now I will go over the mechanic on how exactly our player is going to move. We give our player an X and we give our player a Y, right? A get X and get Y, which the sole purpose of that is just so the board knows where exactly to draw that image, right? Now what we want to do is that if we press down the right key, for example, we want the player's X position to change positive, and then if we go left, we want it to change negative, and vice versa, right? So what we're going to do is basically in our player.move function, which again is getting called every 5 milliseconds, we want to just draw that player's X, but we're going to add a variable called the change in X. So we're going to make 2 new private integers. That's going to be the d of x, dx, which is the change in x in the player's x, and the private int d of y, which is the change in the player's y. We're going to initialize those as 0 to start. And then in our move function, we're just going to say that our player's x equals the player's x plus the d of x, and vice versa for the y. Right? So looks good. Back in our board class, our key pressed, we're going to get a key event E. I believe, I don't even know which key event, I don't have anything written down, and just kind of, but how to figure that out, we could say whenever the key is pressed, tell me which key is pressed. So we're just going to system out u pressed key plus e dot should have like a get something, get ID, get key code. Alright, It sounds like it's gonna work. Maybe not. Alright, so the reason why that wasn't working is that I forgot to, just like how we're initializing the thread here, I need to initialize the actual key listener. And I got to that by hitting that add key listener, right? Since we're implementing the key listener interface, we can pass it ourselves. Rather, in this class, we can pass it the board, right? So we're just going to pass it this. Now this is going to activate the actual key listener. That's going to, or rather, that should. I haven't checked yet, but it should log these things out. So if I put what I had here before, you pressed key plus e.get key code, and now we're going to run it, and hopefully that's going to print out to the console anything that I hit on my keyboard. Yes, it will. So if I hit the right key, it's going to be 39. Okay, so for right now, I'm just going to go inside the board and say if e.get key code is 39, then we know right key press. So if we hit right, what do we want to do? We want to, since the player is getting drawn every 5 milliseconds, we want to change his, not his X directly, but since that player.move is being called and our player X is dependent on the change in X, then we want to change the change in X, right? So we need we already have a setter for it? Yes, no, we don't. So I'm just going to make that real quick. Public void set d of x. It's going to accept an integer, new x, or rather dx. And then inside here, we're going to set dx equals dx. Public void get change in x. Oh, sorry, that returns an integer, not void. And then we're just going to return r d of x. Alright, that looks good. So now on our board, key press. If key code equals 39, which is right, we're going to call, just for right now, set d of x to 1. Just to show that it's changing, right? So what's going to happen is inside the move function of the player, the x is getting updated automatically by whatever the d of x is. And initially the d of x is 0 because we don't want our player moving anything. As soon as we hit the right key, the d of x is going to change to 1 and the player should move to the right. So now we run it and then I'm going to hit the right key and there you go. He's moving to the right. Now he's going to keep going forever just because we're starting this out. But what we want to happen basically just to finish that right key is that as soon as you press it down, it's going to change the d of x, and then as soon as you release it, it's going to change it back to 0, right? Because we don't want our player moving anymore. So we're going to go into board, and I forgot to check what the left key was. So I'm just going to log e.get key code to check what key the right key, sorry, the left key is. Actually, we don't need the left key right now. Well, we'll just use it anyways. The left key is 37. So inside our board, the key released, if e.get key code equals 39, right key released, player.set d of x to 0, and we're going to do 37, was it? Yeah, 37. So if e.get key, I should maybe put this in a switch statement. It doesn't matter though. You would usually decouple all this stuff and change it, but for right now it's fine that we're just writing it in one big class. So this is the left key. We're going to do the same thing, set the d of x, except now we're going negative since we want him to go left. And then inside here, I'm doing the if statements on the actual keys because instead of just putting on key release, just change the d of x to 0. Just because maybe we want to be, maybe like if he has a jetpack or something, right? We don't want him to stop moving if he releases the jetpack. So we're just going to change the d of x back to 0. That's fine. Right key, and then this is the left key. So now we should have very basic movement for our player. So I'm going to hit the right key. I'm going to release the right key. I'm going to hit the left key. I'm doing a little moonwalk, and then release the left key. Alright, so now we have basic player movement. We've got our images getting drawn every 5 milliseconds. And you have a basic 101 intro on game development in Java.